Welcome to the Humankind tutorial series where we'll give you a rundown of the different parts of the game. In this one, you'll learn some basic mechanics like movement, advancing out of the Neolithic era, and early game tips and tricks. Everybody in Humankind starts off as a Neolithic tribe, and the goal in this stage is to make it up to the Ancient Era. How do you do that? Well, you'll have to gain era stars. You gain era stars by completing objectives, which you can see up here in the top left corner of your screen. Before we get into what these objectives are, though, you'll have to learn to navigate the map. To move your units, select the group, then select the tile you'd like to move to. Different units have different numbers of movement points, and once you're out, you'll have to wait until the next turn to move again. These guys only have 4 movement points, as you can see here, and we've used them all. Let's click the End Turn button here. Humankind is played in turns. Every player carries out their actions simultaneously during their turn. When there's nothing left to do, you must select End Turn to move to the next one. Ending a turn will refill unit movement points, advance any ongoing constructions, and top up the number of resources you produce. In each era, you'll have to earn 7 era stars out of a possible 21 to advance to the next one, except for the Neolithic era. Here, you'll have to obtain 1 of 3. To obtain a growth star, you'll have to gain population units. To gain units, you'll have to earn food, which can be found through hunting wildlife, ransacking animal sanctuaries, and sending units to these glowing curiosities with the food icon. Ransacking is pretty simple. If you find yourself near one of these markers here, select your army, then select the ransack button on the right side of your screen. Then select the sanctuary you'd like to ransack. In the Neolithic era, it'll take a turn to finish, but later down the line, depending on what you ransack, it could take longer. You can also ransack outposts, districts, and extractors, but we'll talk a little more about that in the Break the Wall video. You'll get science stars by obtaining science curiosities, similar to the food ones I just mentioned. Pay attention to the curiosities icon to know exactly what you're picking up. To earn a hunter star, you'll have to hunt wildlife. In this era, you'll find deer, bears, and mammoths, so make sure you have enough units with you to live to tell the tale. To attack an animal, select your army, then select the attack button in the army panel on the right and select the animal you'd like to attack. I'm going to hit this button to resolve the battle manually, and this will open up the battle map. Place your units in the deployment phase, paying attention to terrain elevation and type. We'll dive deeper into how battles work in the Stick 'em Up videos, but for now, just remember, high ground equals good, rivers and low ground equals bad. Just a couple extra things to think about and take with you in these early stages of the game. The foggy parts of the map are areas you either haven't discovered yet or don't have vision over. When you navigate to these areas, the terrain will become visible to you. Be careful though, because you may also discover a hostile faction, animal, or independent people. Also, different tiles on the map work in unique ways. For example, traveling on or through forests will cost more movement points than usual. Rivers work a little differently. Landing on a river tile will cost quite a few movement points, but traveling along a river will allow you to move without penalty. Hover over different tiles to see how many base movement points it'll cost to travel over them. And that should be most of the basics. Check out some of the other videos for a deeper dive into the more specific parts of the game. Now let's get to building you a big old city, shall we? In this one, we'll be chatting about placing outposts, creating and managing cities, and collecting the 4 basic resources in the game. FIMS, or Food, Industry, Money, and Science. To start, you're going to want to claim a territory by placing an outpost. To do so, just select your army, navigate to this button here, and plop the outpost down on any tile you want. It's really simple, but there are a couple things to consider. Outposts cost influence to build. In the Neolithic era, you'll gain influence by hunting and discovering science curiosities. There are other ways to earn it down the road, which you'll discover as you play the game. When placing an outpost, first you'll want to consider your proximity to your opponents. Being close to your enemy doesn't have to deter you, but just know that settling beside them may put them on edge. Secondly, elevation. Your outpost or city may be attacked one day, so it might be wise to get ahead of it and take the high ground. Think of elevation as a natural defense. And finally, resource output, which we'll talk about right away. Territories are sectioned off by dotted white lines like the ones you see here. When you place an outpost within one of these areas, the section becomes yours and is outlined by your empire's color. Be on the lookout for territories with an abundance of resources, shown by these icons on the map. The 4 main building blocks of any bustling city or outpost are food, industry, money, and science, or FIMS. Each of these basic resources can be exploited directly from the map, the amount of each depending on where you place your outposts and districts. Food will feed and grow your population, industry will affect the production speed of your city, money will let you buy stuff, and science will help your people learn new things and advance technologically. Starting out, a good bet is to look for areas with good food or industry yields, but almost every territory can be lucrative if you play your cards right. Back on the subject of outposts, you can place one in the Neolithic era, but you won't be able to convert it into a city until you've chosen a culture in the Ancient era. So what's the difference between an outpost and a city anyway? Well, an outpost can be placed on the map, like I said before, to claim the territory. You'll be able to exploit food and industry adjacent to your outpost location, and the game will show you a FIMS pre-visualization when you hover over different tiles. You'll also be able to place resource extractors, but that's pretty much it. You won't be able to grow much economically from there. Converting your outpost to a city is the solution to this problem. Building a city will cost some influence, but that's where the real growth starts. You'll gain access to both districts and infrastructures, which will allow you to increase the amount of resources your city generates and exploits. You can only convert your outpost into a city once you've reached the Ancient era. To start the conversion after you've chosen your first culture, go into your outpost and navigate to the menu that appears on the right side of your screen. If you've got enough influence, you can hit this button right here to start construction. Your outpost will instantly upgrade to a city. And remember, the first city you build will become your empire's capital. I've mentioned districts and infrastructures a few times now. Once you have your city selected, on the right side of your screen, once again, you'll see a series of hexagonal icons and a few square icons. The hexagons are districts, which are quarters that are placed directly on the map to exploit and gain specific resources. For example, let's take the Maker's Quarter, which specializes in exploiting industry and adds an industry population slot. Managing your population will be very important down the line as your population grows. For now, hit the icon to select it. Once you have it selected, you can hover over different tiles adjacent to your city center or any other applicable tiles to see which resources you'll gain from placing it there. You may also see a UI suggestion for where you'll get the most out of your placement, but it's ultimately up to you to decide where you'd like to set it down. The same works for farmers' quarters, except they exploit food instead of industry. Back to the menu, the square icons are infrastructures. These are usually upgrades to your city's resource output, but the difference here is that they are not placed on a tile. Infrastructures are straight upgrades to your city, so you don't have to worry about where to place them or what they exploit off the map. For both districts and infrastructures, hover over their icons before you queue them up to know exactly what you'll be exploiting or gaining. Once you select an infrastructure or place a district, you'll see that your constructions queue up in the order that you start them. Everything you build in your cities costs industry to complete. Let's say you earn 100 industry per turn, and the district you like to build costs 400. It'll take 4 turns to complete that district, assuming your industry income remains the same each turn. Every turn, industry is contributed to the construction and continues to do so until enough has been put in to complete it. If there's anything left over, that industry will be carried over to the next thing in your queue. The same process is used for researching technologies, only it uses science, not industry. If you're feeling a little impatient, you can also just buy out the whole construction with money, or, after some research, population. Be careful though, it can get a little pricey the further off it is from being completed. There's still a lot more to go through when it comes to city management in Humankind, so in the next one, we'll dive a little deeper into how you can make your cities more lucrative. So we've already discussed building you a nice little city to live in, but there's a lot to go over on the topic. So we thought we'd make another video covering how to keep that city on the right track. In this one, we'll cover maintaining stability, attaching territories, and exploiting luxury and strategic resources. One of the most important things you'll need to keep an eye on when it comes to your city is stability. When your people are happy and healthy, they're more productive. When they're not, well, they're not. Your stability meter shows how stable your city is. The higher you are on the meter, the more loyal your people will be. The pink area on the meter is your current stability value. As you can see though, there is another portion indicated in white. This is your target stability, which is where your stability is trending. From where you are currently, your stability will either increase or decrease by 5% every turn until it hits the target value. When your stability gets too low, things start to go downhill fast. Once you start to dip below 30% stability, your city will become unstable. Your people will become mutinous, refusing to build most districts, stability-enhancing quarters and shared projects being the exceptions, and eventually leaving altogether, and that's one more enemy you'll have to deal with. How do you maintain stability? There are a couple ways. First of all, keep an eye out for districts and infrastructures that improve the pink stability icon. These will increase stability and make your people happier. Also, try to keep the number of cities you own within the set limit. You can see how many cities you can own without penalty up here in the top right corner of the screen. If you found more cities than this number, you will receive penalties to your influence income. But what if you want to expand further? You have a couple options here. First, you can increase the number of cities you can build by advancing to certain cultures or researching new technologies. We'll talk about that in a second. You have another option though. In Humankind, you can attach adjacent territories to create larger ones, which will allow you to rule over more territory and add to the resource output of the original cities. It will also help with city management and will allow you to apply wonder bonuses to more districts if you've discovered one in your original territory. We'll talk more about wonders in the One to Remember video. To attach territories, one of them must already contain a city. Select the original city, and above the target outpost pin, you should see an attach button. If you've got the influence to spend, hit that, and voila. Damn, that's one big city you've got there. Be careful though, attaching cities will cause them to grow quickly, which will also decrease stability. That's something you'll have to learn to balance. You may have already noticed some icons that look like this on the map. These are luxury and strategic resources. You use strategic resources to help create more advanced districts and units, and you can also sell them for some sweet, sweet cash. For example, horses will allow you to create mounted and chariot units. Luxury resources will provide bonuses to your empire, improve stability, and like strategic resources, can be traded too. To get your hands on them, you'll first have to research Calendar to gain access to the Artisans Quarter. We'll talk more about research in the Knowledge is Power video, so let's just assume you've already finished researching this technology. The Artisans Quarter allows you to exploit all those fancy luxury resources in your territory. To set those up, select your city, then select the Artisans Quarter and place it directly onto the luxury resource deposit you're looking for. You can also queue it up by hitting the resource icon on the map. To extract strategic resources, you'll have to research specific technologies that allow you to do so, but the extractors work just like the ones for luxury resources. City management is super important in Humankind. It's one of the main pillars of a successful empire. There's even more that goes into managing your cities, but hopefully we've provided you with all the info you'll need to go off and figure those out on your own. Good luck, your people need you. Welcome back. In this one, we're talking all about science, specifically researching technologies and exploiting the resource. In the Neolithic era, you can only get your hands on science by obtaining science curiosities. You won't have anything available to spend it on until you get to the Ancient era though, so just keep that in your back pocket until you get there. Once you've chosen your first culture, that's when you can start making use of it. After arriving in the ancient era, the science icon in the bottom left corner of your screen will appear. This is where you'll spend your science income. New technologies will essentially give your empire access to tools to help advance your empire through history. It's how you obtain stronger units, improve districts, new resource extractors, and much more. The more advanced you get, the more resources you'll require. Hence, the need for luxury resources. Before we get into how to start researching, we need to talk about how to get your hands on science to begin with. We already mentioned that you'll be able to find some by obtaining curiosities in the Neolithic era, but the real income starts building once you've got yourself a city. Science income is slightly harder to come by at the beginning of your playthrough than, say, food or industry. Your city does not automatically exploit it right off the bat, so you'll have to place dedicated districts and complete science infrastructures to build up your income, as well as assign population to work as scientists. However, as you progress, so will your ability to exploit science. If you're looking to improve your science income, be on the lookout for anything that provides the blue atom icon here. Now, let's get into how to start researching technologies. To queue up research, just click into the menu in the bottom left corner of your screen. Select the technology you'd like to research, and it'll queue up. You can either choose from the quick selection panel that pops up immediately, or choose a technology from the full tech tree. Head there by selecting this button here. Spending science works just like spending industry does. The amount you make each turn is contributed to the target amount of the technology you want to research. The technology is completed when enough science has been contributed, and any excess will be carried over to the next technology in your queue. For example, if a technology costs 450 science, and you make 100 science per turn, it'll take 5 turns to complete that technology. 100 science will be contributed to the study until enough has been put forth to cover it. The 50 remaining science will then be contributed to the next tech in your queue. The more advanced the technology, the more science it'll cost. Also, some technologies are prerequisites for others, so keep that in mind when planning out your queue. Just a few other things to flag. Each technology is tied to a specific era. You can only research technologies from the era that you're in and before, except if you're a scientific culture. Scientific cultures have a passive ability that allows them to research technologies from the next era. We'll talk more about passive abilities in the Legacy of an Era video. Also, you can use the search bar on the tech tree to quickly filter through technologies. Here, you can use specific keywords to find technologies you're looking for fast. You can either search directly for the tech you're looking for, or use keywords that pertain to it if you don't know the name. And that's all you need to know for technologies in humankind. Now put your lab coat on and get to researching. So let's talk about how you win a game in Humankind. Your fame score is what dictates your position in the race to victory. You can get your hands on it by doing a variety of different things. Earning era stars, completing competitive deeds, and discovering and building wonders. We'll be covering each of these things in this video. Let's start with era stars. We mentioned in a previous video that era stars function as a way to advance you through the eras, but they also contribute to your overall fame score. There are 7 different categories for you to earn era stars in, which cover the 7 different affinities in the game: aesthete, agrarian, builder, expansionist, merchant, militarist, and scientist. Within the categories, there are 3 objectives that, if you achieve them, will earn you an era star. This means there are 21 era stars available to you in each era. The objectives for each era star always relate to the affinity they correspond to. So, for example, here we are in the Ancient Era. These are the 7 different categories of objectives. Within the Agrarian Star category, you'll have to build your population up to the specified number. You can see that there are 3 era stars available. Once you acquire the specified number of population, the objective will update, opening up a new one asking you to acquire even more population units. For each era star you unlock, you'll earn some fame. The longer it takes you to achieve an objective, though, the less fame you'll receive for the era star. If you want to maximize your fame rewards, you're going to want to be quick about it. Keep in mind that earning era stars with affinities that correspond to your current culture will land you double the fame. This can really come in handy. Over on the right side of the Empire screen, you'll see competitive deeds. Competitive deeds are also objectives that you can achieve to earn fame. However, the main differences are that they don't earn you era stars and they can only be achieved once. The same competitive deeds are available to all players, so they will all be working to complete them and take advantage of their fame bonuses. This one here awards you with 50 fame for building a cultural wonder. Once you've done so, you won't gain that bonus for building any additional wonders, though you will still gain the standard fame rewards. And while we're on the topic, the final way to earn fame is by discovering or building wonders. There are two kinds of wonders in humankind: natural and cultural. Natural wonders are awesome natural structures of staggering beauty and are randomly generated across the map. When you discover a new one, you'll earn fame. If you place an outpost and build a city in a territory containing a natural wonder, you will receive economic bonuses. Hover over the wonder to see a breakdown of the resource bonuses you'll receive by settling near it. Cultural wonders, like the Eiffel Tower or Stonehenge, are constructible structures that can be claimed once you've earned enough influence. Once you've claimed a cultural wonder, only your empire can build it. Cultural wonders are what we call shared projects. Their construction can be queued up in multiple cities to cut down on the time it takes to complete them. Finally, you can only claim an additional cultural wonder once you've built your previous one. So even if you have enough influence to unlock a new one, make sure you've completed the construction on the wonder you claimed prior. And that's all for this one. Now go win yourself a game of Humankind.
Follow me.